Okay. All right, perfect. Well, thank you for attending the 2025 Strategic Wealth Group and Strategic Tax Town Hall. Appreciate everybody taking time out of their day to listen to some tidbits for us moving forward, what we see the economy going into. We've got Tom here. Just kind of give you an introduction. My name is Chris Hamilton. I'm an advisor with Strategic Wealth, and we've got Tom. I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hi, excuse me, my name is Tom Sims. I'm a CPA, have been for too many years. And I work downstairs in the tax group with, half a dozen other people, gals.
Perfect. So kind of the agenda for today is we're going to just talk about, we'll lead off with Tom with the tax side of things, just because that's the pressing issue for everyone as those 1099s come in. And I'm sure there's a lot of people with questions. And then secondly, then we'll do an economic update and then also notify everyone of kind of our model changes and how we see kind of the investment outlook moving forward for the year. And then football's underway, so I don't know if we have any Kansas City Eagles fans out there, but I know they weren't my pick, just being a homie with the Vikings. But again, that's the benefit of being a Vikings fan, you get let down. So but to go underway, I want to have Tom kind of start us off, and he'll kind of give you some things to look out for and some things to prep for the 2024 tax session. So,
Okay, well, as you know, tax season is just coming into season for most of you. For us, it pretty much hits the ground running on January 1st. We do a lot of payroll related things for clients, payroll taxes and W-2s and 1099s. And then we get going on our corporate files to start rolling in early to mid-January. But for you individuals, you don't get your information docs typically until about February 1st. And those of you who are waiting for investment 1099s, by the rules, the law, I think they have until February 15th to get them out. Although they usually take a little longer than that. For whatever reason, they think the rules don't apply to them. So you might get your 1099s from the investment houses in late February, some early March, some even later. But as you get them, that oftentimes is the last of the information you need to compile and get going on your tax return. So we are at this point beginning to field a bunch of calls from individuals to set appointments for tax season, or to get their own taxes prepared, I should say. And the sooner you get your information together, the sooner you can put an appointment in place, the sooner you know where you're going to end up, whether you want them filed immediately or not. At least you know where you're gonna end up. Am I gonna get some money back, or am I gonna owe a pile? It gives me a little time to plan for it. So typically I tell people to get their appointments on the books so we can get going on it as soon as we can, although I know a lot of you can't until you get all those 1099s. So that being said, we send out organizers to everybody that was on last year's client list, and you should probably have them by now. They've been going out for the last 3-4 weeks, probably. That organizer is a nice little pamphlet that does exactly what it is entitled. It's an organizer. So it is laid out in different sections that pretty much follow along with tax returns. And it's got 2 columns, one with all of your 2023 information in it, and a blank column for 2024 information. So if you follow that organizer and you look down your 23 column, you can look at that and say, well, you know, it's something I had before, I probably do again. Go take a look. And it does a real good job of helping you along and organizing your information. For years, I've been doing this stuff for 48 years. And for years, I've been fighting with people to use their organizers. And probably 2/3 of the people do. The other third think they have a better way of doing things. But every year, when each new person jumps into the organizer for their first time, that the first thing out of their mouth is, wow, I wish I would have been using this a lot earlier. So take a look at it, even if you decide not to use it. Your filing deadline is April 15th, as most of you know. And if you can't get your information together or don't care, don't want to get it together, we can file extensions until that take you out to October 15th. Nothing wrong with extensions. Some people plain and simple want to get it done by April 15th, and I don't blame it, because we'd just as soon get everything going by April 15th too, not let a pile of stuff drag into the summer when we'd all rather be out on the lake or somewhere else. But that being said, a certain number of us, certain people, I'm looking to the ceiling, because that'd be me, you know. The cobbler doesn't make his kids' shoes before everybody else's, so some of us file extensions every year, and there's nothing wrong with it. It does give you a little more time to put your stuff together if you're having a rough time with it. But it does drag last year's problems into next year, unfortunately. So the sooner you get it done, the sooner you're gonna know where you're at. 1099s by law, I already said, have to be out by March 31st, 1099s and W-2s, so you should have all that info with the exception of the investment houses. K-1s coming from partnerships, they drag their feet a little bit more. Partnerships themselves have until March 15th to file their own tax returns. So their K-1s that are going out to partners, whether it's individuals like yourselves, or whether it's partners that are, say, different funds that your investments are in. Those K1s dribble out and they have to kind of roll downhill. So some of your investments are in mutual funds that are invested in other funds that are invested in partnerships, and those K1s just roll out later. And that's one of the good reasons why you don't get your investment 1099s until quite often later. Mutual funds are still waiting for information. When you get into your own organization of information in that organizer, a lot of it is income related issues like W-2s and 1099s and interest income, et cetera, capital gains. But the other side of it is your deductions. If you're still itemizing deductions, those typically consist of the three big ones that count now are the taxes, any kind of state taxes paid, but that category is capped at $10,000, and your mortgage interest and your charitable contributions. Medical expenses do come into it. However, the first 7.5% of your adjusted gross worth of your medical expenses don't count. So it takes a lot of medical expenses to get any benefit out of it, and hopefully you don't have a lot of medical expenses. That's the only benefit of high medical expense. You might get to use them for taxes, but we don't like medical. We don't like to have incurred whatever it is we had to go through to incur those expenses. So the standard deductions, a lot of people aren't itemizing those deductions anymore, because in 2018, the Tax Cut and Jobs Act doubled the standard deduction. So as a single taxpayer, your standard deduction is right around 14 grand for 2024. And for married couples filing a joint return, it's right around $29,000. So unless you have a lot of mortgage interest or a lot of charitable contributions, being that the tax category is capped at 10 grand, a lot of you don't itemize that used to. That doesn't mean you need to forget about those things, because if they don't extend that Tax Cut and Jobs Act, we're going back to the old days after 2026. Or is it after 25, 26? My guess is with the new administration, they'll probably extend that tax act one way or the other. You have until April 15th to make your IRA contributions and SEP contributions and other forms of retirement plans, or if they're salary deferrals like 401ks or simple plans, that's done as of December 31st. I guess that's pretty much all I have to say. Again, as soon as you can get your info together, if you want us to do your tax returns for you, we're happy to do so. We're here, that's our job. Give us a little bit of upfront notice and it works a whole lot better. typically, if you drag your stuff in here after mid-April, we won't guarantee that it's gonna get done by April 15th, because you can imagine the rush we have it right at the tail end there. But we'll try, we'll do everything we can to get it out the door.
Perfect.
What else we got? Anything?
That's pretty much it for the
Okay.
tax side. Anybody have any questions regarding the tax department or Tom in general?
I have some questions.
You say the tax is the dental work of
Huh?
financial department.
Is
The
what?
taxes are the dental work of finances, a necessary evil.
Tell you what, in all the years I've been doing this, 48 plus years, that's one thing I've been likened to more than anything. Tom, you remind me of of my dentist. First you hurt me, then you bill me. I go, okay, whatever. Don't kill the messenger, sorry.
Yeah, I have a question. I
Offend
worked
any
with Sam
dentists out
Archer
there.
for the last couple of years. That's
Okay,
been real helpful.
that's it. Good talking to y'all.
All right,
We'll be around.
appreciate it. Thanks,
Yep,
Tom.
not a
Oh, geez.
All right, perfect. We're gonna get Jared. He's gonna sit down and he'll be my partner in crime on the remaining notes that we have for the meeting. It'll be short and sweet. And I think there's actually some pretty good nuggets here moving forward. So as far as an economic update, the funny thing is that despite what you hear in the news, the economy is actually doing really good. Right now, you're seeing labor productivity is high. Companies are finally expecting better business conditions for the first time since 2021. Unemployment rate is low. We're at 4 to 5%. Inflation is slowly but surely coming down and holding somewhat steady. And to kind of come back with Tom and saying that they're forecasting that the 2025 tax ruling will extend, which is good for us planners. It allows us to, facilitate a lot of the Roth conversion strategies, because there was a timeline that we thought we were going to end and we weren't able to do that and benefit our clients. So, but with that said, if they don't increase inflation or they don't increase the tax, and inflation keeps coming down, there are some experts that are saying that interest rates could go down. But we'll have Jared jump on that as well. Household net worth continues to grow at a promising rate. Again, for some industries, it's not as promising, just with the costs of eggs and milk. You hope those industries do catch up and pay their employees, but that's a different conversation. Revolving consumer credit, as a share of disposable income is in line. So there's not as much credit card debt, in reference to 2010, after the financial crisis. So all in all, just there's a lot of news that's coming in just with the election and everything coming down, that everything's in turmoil. We're watching what the election will do with the market, but in general, companies are in a good spot. Inflation is looking good. I definitely wouldn't want the Fed's job in handling the Fed rate. But with that said, we'll kind of go over just some of the investments and what we're steering towards as far as making adjustments to pieces of the portfolio where we're weighting more on some aspects and we're reducing on some aspects. So we'll go over that as well. But without further ado, I'll bring Jared in there because I'm tired of hearing my voice. We'll let Jared talk about interest rates.
Very well said, Chris. Thank you. And I'm just reading some comments in the chat here. We apologize for missing that tax question. We're actually not able to hear anything, but in terms of the tax organizer, so that is a kind of like Tom mentioned, just a organization tool to help tax clients, really gather all the documents, whether you are a new client to strategic tax or a old client, that has been utilizing them for a while, just a way to make sure you're not missing anything. But again, we do apologize for missing that question. So kind of to expand on some of the things that Chris was going over, the one, I guess, other big aspect that everybody is watching out for is what is the Fed going to do with interest rates? So last year there were 3 cuts in 2024. Looking forward to this year, I don't think we expect it to be as many. Right now we're expecting right around 1 cut, possibly 2, but that all could depend on some other factors that are gonna come into play and what the Fed is going to look to do. They're aiming right around their target rate of 4.25 to 4.5. So if we do see another rate cut, which I guess possibly we will hear more news tomorrow as they meet and come out with some expectations there, we'll find out some more info. But yeah, and the other aspect along with that is inflation. And we have seen inflation slowly come down. It's not at the rapid levels that it was 2 years ago, say, but it still steadily is getting right around to that target that the Fed has. So the other thing along with that is, yeah, the price changes. We saw those spike up when we're looking at just the CPI and kind of the different prices of all services and goods. We've seen that spike up over the past couple of years. We just don't think we really see drastic changes of that going back up to what it was a couple of years ago, or kind of reverting back to the mean. So we kind of think we may be in the same levels that we're looking at for a little bit.
So in retrospect, if we do see a drop in interest rates, consumer spending will continue, which we hope. But in general, if we're relating to the actual performance of the market, and in particular the S&P 500, that's really what everyone kind of looks at as far as a measurement. So whenever someone says, that the S&P is down 100 points or 200 points, that's what everybody follows as far as a benchmark. And so that kind of leads me to the Magnificent Seven. So it's been broadcast over the news quite a bit for 2024. So the Magnificent Seven are in the name 7 particular stocks that really carried the S&P 500. So if you remember in prior years, they had FANG stocks, which was Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, and Google. And those were up double digits and let's say 100%, 80%, 70%. And so with the S&P, those FANG stocks, those 4 were really carrying the S&P 500 because they were double digits. And maybe the market finished, the S&P 500 finished back then probably at 16%. So you had a lot of those main stocks really carrying the index. So the same thing happened in 2024. So we had those 7. So the 7 include Meta, Apple, Google, Amazon, Microsoft, NVIDIA, and then Tesla. So those were the main drivers for the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ as well, those being a lot of those companies being tech stocks. So when you have those Magnificent Seven, and we'll kind of relate why we're changing those to our actual models themselves. But what happens is you see those 7 get overinflated and their PE ratios get high. And so what that means is you need all the other 493 companies to really catch up. And so we'll talk about how we're going more or less in value in the upcoming quarter. So we'll talk about that shift. Also with small cap companies, that was a big talking point. So small cap meaning your smaller companies. So for those beginner investors, large cap being the big companies, meaning Coke, Facebook, right? Amazon, the very large cap companies. Small cap are your smaller companies. They actually had estimates and they're mainly sitting in the Russell 200 or 2000. But company earnings in 2025 is a 57% increase as compared to the S&P 500, which is projected for a 15%. So again, our theory is to kind of divest in those Magnificent Seven and then try to get into something that I had a client that said, hey, when this market makes their adjustments, I don't want to be going 20 miles an hour. I want to be going 60 miles an hour. And so that's what we're doing with our portfolios. We're just making those slight adjustments so that when small cap, in our opinion, is going to have a little bit more more juice, a little bit more room to grow, we want to kind of tilt our portfolios that way, to help increase returns. And then as far as changes to our model, I'll let Jared kind of talk about, those specifics. So.
Yeah, no, spot on. So kind of exactly like Chris was saying, with the run up in growth of what there has been over the past few years, going forward, we are, just trying to find those other pockets of the market of where there may be some undervalued companies or sectors that we can take advantage of and, gain the outperformance over the coming years. So some, I guess, allocation changes that we are looking to make going forward just across our models are decrease slightly our international exposure, just based on what we see in the current investment landscape and with the current or with the new administration's proposed policies, and utilize those allocation percentages to go towards some of those undervalued companies like Chris was mentioning that we do see in large cap value, because I do think there are going to be plenty of opportunities and room for outperformance in the other 493 companies within the S&P 500 that we want to, just look at, and try and get more of a balance because of growth having such a good run up over the past few years. Now some of the accounts and some of the portfolios may be a little bit overweighted in growth. So we find this as a good opportunity to kind of rebalance and, get more of a blend between the growth and the value. That is more of an overview. Yeah.
Yeah. So, with those slight, just changes to those positions. I mean, you can think of some of the government pressures that you have with tariffs coming down. There's a couple of things where we're just keeping an eye on and just making sure we're abreast of those issues, and then making sure that we're making those adjustments, sooner than later, so that you as our clients, you're able to benefit from either the growth or also protect you on the downside. So
while some of those, specific changes are going to be different per each model, because we do, have customized and tailored solutions depending on each client's situation and each client's, accounts. But I would say, just as a more, kind of overview, we never really like to take huge swings when we're making these model changes. But we're looking at, decreasing the international exposure roughly 5 to 10%. And utilizing that to go more towards large cap value, and also possibly small cap. So I just wanted to get a little more specific on, we're not looking to take a huge 50% out of international and allocate that to US, but just kind of the small tweaks here and there based on what we see in the investment landscape.
Yeah, and context around that, maybe we were, 10 to 15% in international, as far as an allocation perspective, and now we're at 5%. So those are the slight changes. Nothing earth shattering, but again, all those little adjustments do add up for the end of the year. And 2024 was a great year for the market, and so we hope we can continue that for you for 2025. So with that being said, any questions specific that you have in regards to in regards to inflation, the economy, interest rates, we are here for them. So.
And if you could type them in the chat, that would be preferred if there are any.
Sorry about that. Let's see if we can adjust this here.
Wait. Gotta work. Come Come on, guys.
We need to zoom out of that. So I think we had a previous how do we, can you go ahead and, so Gerald Bischoff is showing his screen. Can you go ahead and sorry about the technical difficulties here. I'm not sure how he got control of the screen. Can you just boot that?
Oh, no.
There we go. Okay. Okay, so some questions did come in. So are you concerned about issue yesterday where the announcement of DeepSeek by China weakened havoc on some of the Magnificent Seven stocks, and what impact would you have on a longer term on the market? So that's sort of a loaded question. You've got with that news, it's hard to see if that specific announcement was the main driver for the weakening of those specific stocks. Give you an example. Nvidia is one that with that announcement took a 17% dip yesterday, and then I believe it's up to 126. So there's kind of a caveat of one, people, the market's a living, breathing thing. So I see people, kind of taking some of the gains off of Nvidia to then kind of capture that. So you saw a lot of, it wasn't necessarily a lot of that news that came out from specifically the DeepSeek announcement. But I think it is something that we are monitoring, which sounds like a cop-out answer. But with Nvidia popping up today again, I just think it was at that time it was a good, some people got in on the dip. But as far as right now, I really don't see that impacting those tech stocks, because there's still so much more out there. Nvidia has a couple other things that they're bringing out to the table. Apple, I believe, was up today. Microsoft was up. So again, you're not quite sure if it was the announcement, but also there's fear. So sometimes fear also pushes the sale of a lot of those investments. So if you have CNBC kind of broadcasting fear, that's sometimes I call it the CNBC effect, where there's a lot of individuals that will sell, and you'll see a reflection in that price. But as far as right now, I don't really see that being too much of a concern. But again, if we had a crystal ball, everybody'd be on a beach somewhere. So, but as far as right now, we're not concerned with that. We're still keeping where they're at. So, as far as right now, I guess long-winded answer of not yet. So, stay tuned on the DeepSeek.
Yep, and I would agree on Chris's sentiment, and also just kind of the short-term scare that it did provide the market. Has the AI boom been too much? Is it overblown? And that's where, we don't think so, but we also do think if we are, going to lower our international exposure, is that the best place to put it for? And that's kind of where we do think there are going to be some undervalued sectors and companies outside of those Mag 7 or those top AI stocks.
Yeah. Okay, and then is 4% still the standard withdrawal? That's okay, or do you think it's a little less now? I'm reading 3.8%, maybe the new normal. Thoughts? 4% is right now the benchmark. I get where it's 3.8 could be that, but right now, we're really trying to make sure that, if a client's taking income, we have, that income set aside for that 3-year mark, so we're really making sure if there is a dip that we're taking care of that. So I think with proper planning, 4% is the standard, and it should stay the standard. With interest rates dropping, that does affect that, where I'd say 7 months ago, we could get a money market at 5.2%. Now those yields are dropping. So on a fixed interest standpoint, there is an argument for 3.8, but in my opinion, I think 4% is still right on target to take a distribution rate.
Yep, would completely agree. And I also do think it is a little bit situational, because yeah, we want to look at more, maybe it makes more sense to early on, in the first years of retirement when you are more, go and kind of being more active. Maybe it still makes sense to take 5 or 6 or 7% of the portfolio, knowing that you're not going to be spending that much, in the latter years of retirement. So I do think, it averages out probably to be that 4%, but it is going to be, a little bit different for everybody based on, their situation. Any other questions?
And I would make sure that you speak with your individual financial advisor and kind of talk about that distribution rate. So we have tools, Money Guide Pro, eMoney. So we have tools that show an increased distribution rate or a decreased distribution rate, and then have set assumptions as far as rate of return based on the risk that you're taking to really determine your net worth at the end of the rainbow. So you have some clients that I want to, the ultimate goal for them would be, I want to spend all my money in retirement and then pass away when I have got $1 left. And then you've got others that are more charitable, that they want to continue to increase their nest egg. So to that point, it really kind of depends on, like Jared said, situational. But to kind of combat that fear, we have plenty of tools to really show and help you kind of give that peace of mind that based on your current distribution rate, your money will last many years into retirement. And so that's probably the number one question we get is, with markets being all-time high, if I keep the same allocation that I'm in and we do get a 20% downturn, how does that impact my portfolio? And we can simulate that to really kind of give you that peace of mind of, yes, okay, I am set up properly. My advisor has done a good job, and that, I'm well prepared in retirement. And so.
Well said. Well said. Oh, and it looks like we might have missed one up top about possible state taxes being applied to investment advisory services. I know that was in the discussion based on what does happen with the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. I don't believe there have been any final confirmations or decisions made around that and bringing that back before the act was put into place. But I don't think there has been a decision made on that.
Biased, I would love for that to be a write-off for everyone. So if that were to be a write-off, I'd be the first one to sign that one. So. Okay. All right, perfect. Well, I appreciate everyone taking time out of the day. And if you have any other individual questions based on your situation, contact your advisor. But again, we're here to help. And I know with tax time and everything happening right now with the adjustments, I know sometimes our response time may be delayed. So apologize for that. We're trying to move as fast as we can with that. So again, appreciate your patience with everything. And we're here to help. So feel free to call. And hopefully 2025 has a great earning years like 2024. So let's go.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.